grandfather director jong ka Sacred Heart Theological College ile thu ka jingwan jong ni ka khlam ka long ka aka ka bapla namar hadin bala test positive yaki pabun la pha no sha Sacred Heart bande home quarantine kat baya I la hap ban bu ha hospital ha ka jing pe ki doctor namar bi khamjur ha ka jing sa jong I ha hospital ile thu pakilas dang ban ai oxygen ye I ila ngap thu ila di bat le persang ban weng yak oxygen na ka daw ka jing soyap habai weng I khamla ban ring man sim ile thu ba im sngu dan jing per habai la lot no yak oxygen ru ila la ban ring man sim kumju hadin ars ngi bai la dan ha hospital ila yo jing kot bai la yo ban mi no tang hadin kat tu kat ni sngi hadin ga jing yo mi jong in hospital ila hab ban shong pen karpang ila de bat ha kaning kapor ila sung thu bai dan hi ka jing blau Henry Kalong tang sipor namar ila la ban pulut ikapor da ka badwai bat pusan kham jili ka jing it mamayan jong blai
10 of us went and 7 of us were declared positive. And I was not worried as such, but what scared me little is that the doctors there told me that it is quite serious, they said. And so they told me others can go back, but you have to remain in the hospital. And immediately they gave me a room and they gave even oxygen. But I was not feeling any need of even oxygen or anything. In fact, I removed 2-3 times to find out whether there was any difference between taking the oxygen or breathing normally. And I found there was practically no difference. And 2 days I stayed in the hospital, then they discharged me. My experience was that, I didn't have any much of the symptoms as such. When I came back, I followed the protocol and remained another 15 days in my room. And of course, first time confined to a room, I found myself a little difficult in the beginning. Used to going out and involving myself in a lot of other activities, pastoral activities, etc. And so it was a little difficult, but I managed to adjust myself and I took it as it came. In the beginning, I was a little bit worried, but afterwards I took it very naturally, normally, and I was not scared. One of the things that I experienced that tells me is that there is a very big temptation to get discouraged. The big temptation to get discouraged, even to give up. Sometimes you feel like in the future, what is there now? After this COVID, what is the future? The future doesn't look very bright. But that is one of the biggest temptations which we need to overcome. And as we can see, the protocols that are suggested, the COVID behavior that is suggested by the government, by the doctors, actually it is sufficient. If we strictly follow that, I believe we will be able to overcome. And it requires, of course, very strong faith that we are going to overcome this. Strong faith is required in your a personal faith as well as faith in God. These two are very important requirement to overcome this situation that we are all facing. Of course, the situation now is much different from last year. Last year it was not that serious, and it was the first wave. But this second wave that we are experiencing is much more dangerous and so much more serious, and therefore we have to take little extra care than before, little more faithful to even wearing of mask or social distance, regular washing of hands. These are the means that have been suggested. I was reading through about the Spanish flu, for example, of 1918. Even at that time, these same means were suggested. That is social distance, mask and no gatherings. Unfortunately, we were perhaps did not pay sufficient attention to that, and we have landed up in this situation. Not completely our fault, but at the same time, we cannot shirk our responsibility in this particular situation that we find ourselves. A lot of personal responsibility has to be taken. And we don't have to, first thing is that we do not have to fear. Fear is not going to help us anyway. Worry is also not going to help us anyway. We have to be a little more on the positive side. Of course, looking at the situation, especially when we have seen that many of our own family members suffering, and many of them have lost their family members. It is a little difficult to have a very positive attitude, but at the same time, if we do not have this, if we do not look to the future with great confidence and trust, we cannot overcome this because it requires a lot of mental strength to overcome. So that is what my experience is that here, uh, together with my community members here. Last year, in fact, more than half of the community was declared positive. But last year was a different situation. This year we had some 29 of our students were declared positive, but we are able to overcome it. Now there are no one with any symptoms as such, and we hope that we will be able to, let's say, live clear of this COVID and experience, let's say, once again what we have been experiencing, the spontaneity and freedom and all that that comes with life. We are hoping for that.
Ile thu shuh bana pedang ki brother ki bapuli ha kan yo college. Kila pen iya ke jing slur ban le e kan jing pang bat da jing sumar ke jing shania bat jingngeit ya ki jing duai. Kila la pen le persha ya kan hi ke jing pang.
Quarantine and all that period with little anxiety, well, yes, but we were able to overcome and we came back to again our own normal life. Since these brothers are under my charge, I have been talking to them and I have talked to each one and I have asked their experience of this, going through this COVID situation of last year. I asked questions like, were you frightened? Did it frighten you? What do you say? Did it frighten you or did it disturb your life as candidates towards priesthood? Were you disturbed in your vocation as such? Most of the brothers, most of the students told me that they were not frightened. Neither were they disturbed in their vocation. In fact, none of them, in fact, they have been all, till today, they have been carrying on, preparing themselves, going forward courageously to become ministers of God, to be at the service of people. In general, they were not frightened. I think their faith actually supported them. Faith in the Lord and faith in themselves and in whatever meals that are suggested, let's say by the doctors and the government. Actually, faith in this actually helped them to be courageous, to be strong in their belief, in their faith, and in their vocation. This is what I would suggest, propose, or let us say, those who are already declared positive. First thing is to have a very positive attitude, not to get frightened, and take the necessary protocol that is suggested by the doctors, and that is going to help out. And those who are afraid of getting, must suggest that they must take extra precaution so that they are not infected by this dreaded disease or dreaded virus. More than before, we have to take the necessary, seriously take care of ourselves. At this moment, I believe one of the things that I have been talking to the students and telling them is that greatest service, perhaps one of the greatest services we can render to our family, to our community, to our state, is to preserve our health. Preserving one's health at this moment is one of the greatest service that we can do to our neighbor, to our family members, to the society as such. Because keeping ourselves healthy, we are preventing sickness from spreading. So, it's a personal responsibility, and responsibility for others should make us take extra care so that we don't become, let's say, agents or bearers of this virus, in the sense that we don't become agents of spreading this virus and not causing sickness to others. Therefore, keeping our health, preserving our health, keeping ourselves healthy and strong is one of the services that we can render to a neighbor and to the society and to the state. This is perhaps what I would suggest for all of us, those of us who have already have experienced this COVID, and those who are afraid of perhaps getting this virus or this COVID in their lives.